All right, well, thank you guys for joining us again for another Health Truth Life video. We're moving right along on the matrix. We're down here on matrix concept number 15.
Nice.
It's going to be order.
Get your order. That's
Yes,
right. Number
yes.
15. Yeah, part
Yes.
of recovery that we're talking about. This is the third concept within recovery of
Okay.
4. The recovery being just overall the ability to kind of dial it down, sleep,
Okay.
prayer, order, and the development of resilience as part of just overall health and wellness, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And order, the thought process with this, two big components would be of your environment and that which is around where you live, where you work, where you engage, where you interact, and then also your schedule.
Okay.
So schedule being a big part of things with respect to how we can become dysfunctional and with disordered schedule and or environment. And I'll be frank and transparent, this is probably one of my hardest areas is order. Particularly of schedule, but also somewhat of environment. So I think we do a great job here at the office, but I'll tell you, I do struggle with my personal environment at home sometimes with clothes and bathroom and of course just the fact of a house with kids can be challenging.
Busy schedules and a lot going on. It makes it tough to find the time to do those things. But as we're learning, there's been some effort made at the beginning of this year. I know at your house and on your part. We have the time. It's just about finding that time, taking advantage of it, and getting things in proper order.
Right.
So I like it. Good start. So order, I've got a definition here. Order is to arrange or the arrangement or disposition of people or things in relation to each other according to a particular sequence, pattern, or method. Order, as you were just talking about that pertaining to schedules. Man, that one is kind of tough. Like, that's a tough one. You have to be really mindful of it. And what I've noticed, too, is if I'm not diligent to, put it on a calendar, like, the odds of me performing that task, or I've even noticed, like, with relationships, like going on a date with my wife or hanging out with my kids, if I don't make that effort to order it, on a calendar with a schedule, it ain't happening, A
lot of times it won't, right? So you talk about that kind of goes back to what I remember in internship is that in the morning you'd have so many tasks to do to get your number of patients taken care of. And I remember really being diligent to have a checklist with little boxes. And of course, whenever that thing was done, the chest x-ray for Miss Johnson was interpreted, I looked at it or whatever, I could check it off and be, okay, done. And once I got all these things done, then I could move on to the next task of the day and in that day's work. So yes, I think calendars and task lists and bullet points are definitely beneficial. And I use those. I've always kind of used those for, certain things. Like, and I'll go through phases where I'll keep it in my mind. But then whenever I do put it into the bullet ordered form of check boxes, man, they oftentimes will get done, better. So I try to be more mindful of that, and I'm trying to be more mindful of that right now.
It's funny, I remember when I was younger, high school, maybe early college, I was like more of a free spirit. I'm like, I don't want to be this lame old person that has a schedule and sets these strict routines for their day and all these things. But as I've gotten older, man, it's so wise, and there's something to it about keeping that structure and ordering things and scheduling them. And there's too many distractions. I think that's what makes it so challenging now, is there's so many distractions. And so if you're not...
Like what?
I mean, my
what
gosh.
Are you distracted
the
about?
amount of, like entertainment.
Crazy.
Yeah. You could get on the news and read news and watch YouTube videos for hours and hours.
All day long. So, I mean, who's pouring that bucket of information on us? Really? That begs a whole other question, which it could be a whole other video. But the point is, you're exactly right. Distraction plays a big role in the disruption of order.
Yes. So as I've gotten older and realized, wow, like there is something to that. As much as my free spirit self didn't want to, man, I love my family better. Like I'm better with my job. I'm getting things accomplished more at work, at home, and yet in relationships. It affects all of it.
It does. And you think about, like, with respect to what you mentioned, you didn't want to be in kind of almost a degree of bondage to tasks, but it kind of goes back to that thing is it's really counterintuitive, and we can't think about that when we're younger, is that those tasks and the ability to navigate those in a stepwise fashion and get them done provides freedom with the rest of the day.
It really does.
So it's almost that concept of discipline leads to freedom. So in other words, being disciplined with yourself to get what you need to do done then allows for freedom of mind and time to go do those things. So it provides margin. And I think the creation of order, of environment, and schedule does lend to freedom and margin. And so that's why I have this in there.
And that's kind of what I was alluding to too. Not only that, but it frees you up to do the things that you love and care about, because the distractions most of the time they're not the things that, they're not your loved ones, they're not the task at work, or they're not those things that are going to benefit you and your loved ones if you did them. So I like that. And you just said something about your thinking, it affects your thinking and your freedom to think and all that. And a disordered environment is linked to chaotic thinking. And it is illogical to assume that order and beauty will arise without a plan towards more structure, organization, and simplicity. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's very true.
Yeah. I can see my parents, mom and dad, have always had a pretty strict set of order. Not like legalistic that, in the sense of they've got to be doing this, that, and the other, but it's close. But it's close in the sense that their body knows what to expect. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and certain activities. Now, there is a component that too much of that can lend to inflexibility, where you're unable to adapt to change, and that may be a negative. So my point is with this is not to make you strictly in bondage to this new set of order, but to allow for some component of order to allow for freedom. In the rest
you say this at the bottom of this matrix sheet, and I love this. Allow for margin in your schedule, as this allows for the unpredictable events that occur in life, as well as for the unexpected opportunities to serve others. And I love that because, man, if you look at the way Jesus lived, he always had time to serve and love on others. His disciples were always like, no, you got to come here and do this. You got to stick to the plan, He's like, look at this person over here. Like, they need love and help and compassion. And so he did that. He took a step out of his schedule and focused on love and compassion. So that's the greatest example of that. And I love that. And we have these moments a lot where we're interacting out in public. And if we're stressed and focused on, I've got to hurry up and get this done, so I can get back to whatever it is, you're going to miss these moments to be a light and to share love with people. So I love that one. That was really good.
And I think I'll say to you, I think you're really good at providing margin for people and putting things down whenever people come into your presence. So it's something Jason's really good at doing for sure.
But I struggle with the order and the schedule part too. So I'm finding the balance,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But do you find that a degree of order at home does provide more of a sense of freedom, like almost like an comfort, in knowing what to expect, knowing where things are? Because again, that's something that I have struggled with. I think part of it is the disorder and the chaos that can come into two things. One, as a physician at the hospital before, there's always things going on. So I'd have to really be able to be on my toes to change to the next task and or the next problem as a radiologist, because I have to go from a pediatric patient to an adult patient to a phone call to a procedure, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, it's chaos. But you have to have managed ability to cover that chaos. And like now that I'm past a little that part of my life with respect to radiology and do a little bit more ordered work, I find it difficult to kind of change into this more ordered environment. That's number one, but also number two, homeschooling two boys with my wife doing the predominance of it though, for 8 years did lend to a degree of chaos in our home, which was sometimes challenging. It was ordered chaos, but of course it was challenging because the boys were kind of always there. And I can recognize that being a difficulty for some people.
And you had just asked me too about my home and do I find it difficult? Like clutter for sure, like we talked about. I have 3 boys, so having 3 boys, and I'll admit I'm not the best. Like, I don't mind a little bit of clutter, whereas Lacey, if you asked her, my wife, like, she likes it being a little more tidy and structured, and so I do have to work on that for sure. So our home, I would say it's cluttered, but it's not dirty. Like we make the effort to clean and do those things. But you're right, we could use a little more of that decluttering. It says decluttering your environment will have a synergistic effect on your mind, freeing up creativity and leading to a more consistent feeling of relaxation and contentment. These feelings reduce overall stress, and the resultant lowered stress leads to lower blood pressure, less anxiety, better sleep, while improving insulin sensitivity.
I think it does because of the degree of lowering the stress and lowering the degree of what you're managing, and that's why I also think carrying less and less stuff overall provides less in your mind to be thinking of with respect to having to carry those things. So I'm kind of a fan, honestly, of a little bit of a degree of minimalism. And I'd say over the past 6-7 years, my wife and I have really unloaded a lot of stuff. It's kind of interesting. When we traveled from our job here in Gulf Breeze to Gainesville for those 4 years, they weigh your stuff, right? The amount of stuff you have. And I think it was somewhere on the order of like 5 tons of stuff that went from Pensacola Gulf Breeze to Gainesville. Going from Gainesville back to Gulf Breeze 4 years later, the amount of stuff was like 3.5 tons or 3. We lowered 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of stuff, and so I saw that over time we were giving stuff away, we were selling stuff, we were downsizing, and I think I did open up a degree of that concept with me that hey, having less stuff provides more freedom with a lot of things. And certainly, for people out there who have a lot of stuff and are able to manage that, more power to you, and that's okay. I'm not judging that. And I'm not judging stuff, like there's an amount of stuff that you get to that's too much. But I think we all have those degrees of where too much stuff can take away from our peace of mind.
Pertaining to schedule, with our bodies physically, a sleep schedule and like a routine in order for your body, what do you recommend, or you kind of want to hit on that a little bit?
100%, and we've hit this, a number of videos in the past. Specifically with respect to the sleep one, is having a pretty consistent degree of sleep timing. That 10 to 6 a.m., 10 p to 6 a.m., or 9 to 6 a.m., and correlating your sleep with the light schedule. In other words, being active during the day, during sunlight, and being not active at night. Those are beneficial to your body, no question, as we mentioned before. So
So you say having a schedule that both your body and mind can depend on allows for you to know what to expect during your day. So do not overcommit when setting up your schedule, as this will lead to tension and increase in stress hormone production. Allow for margin in your schedule whereby the unpredictable events that life throws your way can be managed. So I like that too, because you go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just saying, who out there overcommits? And please comment below if you are. I know I am the greatest.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Oh yeah, I'll do it. But it's one of those things where you gotta say no sometimes. You recognize, hey, I've gotta let someone else take care of this. So
it gets to that point where you can tell you've taken on too much. The schedule is too full, and then what I think happens is you're not able to fully impact and help those people you've offered to help.
I was just thinking that it dilutes your impact where you're called at that point. So for sure.
I appreciate those moments where I know people are, they're alert and focused on me and what's currently going on in this moment, physically, mentally, emotionally present with me. Whereas, and this is so hard in our society because of the smartwatches and phones, but everybody's distracted, and it's rare that you get full attention and full focus. So when you do, I love it. I love those moments where I can really connect with people and put the distractions aside.
Absolutely.
So